Well, speaking about Minneapolis, Minnesota, at their football games, oh, you didn't think that was where I was going with it, right? You know, in their football games, when you go to see the Vikings play, they get the crowd all in a frenzy, right? At the very beginning of the games. Actually, they do this at every stadium, right? For an NFL football game or a baseball game. It doesn't matter anymore. They always get folks all fired up and in a frenzy before it. In fact, and everybody's got a little different take on it, right? In Minneapolis, if you've ever seen one of their games, they got, I guess it's like a Viking horn, right? Have you seen this thing? And they'll have some kind of movie star, some kind of famous person go, and they'll blow on that horn right before the game and right before the teams come and take the field to start everything. And the whole stadium shakes and everybody is yelling and screaming and everything like that, ready to go for the big moment. Okay, maybe I should take just a second to talk about Minneapolis, Minnesota. Without the football, without with the seriousness. You know, I don't know about you, but I think my heart's kind of broken about some of this stuff. I mean, I can watch videos and see something clearly, and then I'll talk to a friend who sees the same videos, and we end up on the opposite ends of the spectrum in what we thought we saw. Have you noticed this? And almost they're ready to come to blows about what we think should be done. The other thing I'd like to just point out is we used to live in a place where we would just say, maybe we should have somebody investigate and get back to us afterwards with what we should think about the situation. Sometimes I think we want to just rush on in and decide things without just taking a moment to calm down. The other thing is, the more I preach about things in general, the more I think that sometimes even us preachers, we can rush into things before we know all the facts or all the situations. This Sunday seems like a Sunday like that, in which we need to be able to kind of laugh and talk about something else. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So let me proceed. So they get those fans all in a frenzy about what's going to happen on the football field. Now, John the Baptist was kind of like that. John the Baptist, when he came and when he walked the earth, he was the kind of person that was getting everybody riled up for the big event that was coming. And of course, the big event that John the Baptist knew was coming was the Messiah. The Messiah is going to be born. The Messiah of God is going to walk the earth. The Messiah is going to show up here one day, and he's going to lead all of us to a new way of living. And boy, were people excited about that because they were pretty depressed about where their lives were at the moment. I'm sure that doesn't have anything to do with how you might be feeling today. But John thought that maybe he could provide some levity. He thought that maybe he could provide some help in how to go about this waiting for an event to happen that wasn't here quite yet. And quite frankly, John didn't know when it was going to happen, did he? No. But he knew that the people needed to be prepared at any moment's notice for what God might do in the very midst of these folks. And so he was, by all accounts, and you read the different scriptures, and you know he made a physical impression on people, right? This guy was strange. I don't know about you, but it doesn't tell us what he physically looked like, but we do know that there were descriptions of him. All this camel hair, this coarse stuff that he wore, the kind of clothes that would rough up your skin, make it hard as leather, probably, I'm thinking. He ate wild bugs and locusts and honey. This is the kind of guy that you might think of as a wilderness dude, right? Living on the land, not the cleanest guy in the world, I don't think. A kind of burly kind of guy, perhaps. whose physique might have also commanded attention. I'm just saying. Where people would come out and say, let's see this weird dude. Maybe it's like when some of us are younger. Do you remember some of the pro wrestlers? Oh, I hate to say it, but my father watched some of that pro wrestling, and so did I. You remember that giant guy, Andre the Giant? People would come out just to see that guy. Now, I don't know if he was all that, I kind of think that wrestling, young ones, close your ears. I think that maybe it was staged a little. I'm just saying. Well, Andre the Giant was such an intimidating presence that people just came out to see him. It's kind of like that wonderful scene, maybe take it back, a little bit more in the recent times for those of you a little younger, like the Rocky movie when we had, Rocky took on the pro wrestler. Why can't I think of his name right now? Somebody give me his name. Well, Sylvester Stallone, I know, but the guy he fought that was the wrestler, do you remember him? He was Sugar Lips in the Rocky show. He was, there you go, Hulk Hogan. I couldn't think of his name. And how big Hulk Hogan was in comparison to Sylvester Stallone when you're just even filming that movie. It makes me think that John the Baptist was that kind of commanding figure. But now I want you to think about something else, though. Imagine a kid like Rudy. You remember the movie? Yeah. Rudy? Running through that tunnel. First onto the field. Can you just imagine if Rudy was the first one running out that tunnel onto the football field? If some of you don't know who Rudy is, just Google it, daggone it. It's a good movie. You should watch it anyway. I'm not going to explain it to you. It's a classic movie about someone who did not look the part of being anywhere near being a starter on a football team, or have any business running onto a football team from that tunnel. Or better yet, I want you to think about King David before he was king. Remember when he got picked to serve as God's servant? Jesse had all those boys line up. The prophet came to find the new king of Israel. Of course, that was difficult enough because there already was a king. You ever notice how the Bible does that to us over and over again? There's always someone on the throne, and then there's someone else that's ready to step in. And so they're going to anoint somebody. And remember Jesse, he's like, well, this is my oldest one. And everybody's like, oh, he looks like a leader. He looks like a military giant. This guy is definitely the new king of Israel. And they're, no, that's not the one. And they went down the whole entire list. And finally they said, well, don't you have any more sons? I mean, the prophecy says, God says it's going to be one of your sons. Oh, well, there's David. I mean, if you want to go to that, I mean, you might as well. It's not really worth your time or effort. He's out there watching the sheep. He's a small, kind of runny kind of a guy, and he says, yeah, he's too slender. He's too small, handsome guy, but, kind of in a Brad Pitt way, I mean, it might make a great movie, but you certainly don't want to stand behind him in a fight. Slender, couldn't even wear a proper suit of armor, remember, to face the Philistine giant. Andre the Giant, I'm sure, his father-in-law or something, or his great-grandfather, Goliath. Armed with just a slingshot. Whenever I think about that story, I think, how embarrassing that must have been. Can you imagine paying tickets for that one? Going down there and saying, hey, we're going to see a big fight today. Oh, who's it going to be about? Well, we got this giant, Goliath, big wrestler, big dude. And then, well, who's Israel going to put up there? Well, Israel's got this fellow named David. Oh, really? Where is he at? Well, he's right there. What? That's the water boy. That's the bat boy. What are you talking about? And how embarrassing it must have been that King Saul, used to be a mighty general, and all his other military folks are standing on the sidelines going, yep, that's the one we're going to send out there today. How embarrassing. You mean you're not man enough to stand up to Goliath? You're going to send this little child, this little boy, this little bat boy out there to take him on? Everyone present was ready for an Ultimate Fighter match. Maybe a caged match. I don't know. Probably they were laughing and heading to the Exodus, is what I think, in that Old Testament story, ready to demand their money back for their tickets. Don't you think? Not going to be much of a show today, folks. Had Saul and all of Israel lost their minds? Apparently they had. At least that's what most would have thought in reading that story. Verse 13 of today's text. Then Jesus came from Galilee to John at the Jordan to be baptized by him. Now, in Matthew's story, this is basically the first time we've seen Jesus since his birth, right? Just shows up there in the desert next to John the Baptist, ready to be baptized. I want to ask you a question today as we're thinking about these matters. How do you picture Jesus? I mean, what does he look like? I'm going to share with you what I kind of thought Jesus looked like when I was growing up. Handsome, right? Got to be handsome. Muscular, I'm imagining. The girls in the confirmation class always said he had to have a six-pack of abs. Sun-toned skin, right? You know, the best that you can afford at one of those tanning places, right? Except he didn't need a tanning place. Flowing hair, I mean, there's no dandruff problem there. Perfectly trimmed facial hair, you know what I'm talking about, right? Some of you are sitting next to folks that don't know how to do that. Finely dressed, if anybody could come into one of those stadiums dressed to the hilt, it was going to be Jesus. Am I right? I'm sure he was over 6 foot tall because that's what every woman wants, right? Got to be taller than you, 6 foot at least. The kind of person who just draws a crowd, just by his appearance. Women swooned, I suspect, when they saw him. Men wanted to be like him. Same skin color as us, I'm sure. I'm really sure about that. Blue eyes, brown hair, or blonde maybe. Maybe kind of a blondish brown, maybe. And here's the troubling thing. Search the scriptures. Do this because I have and I can't find it. The Bible contains no physical description of Jesus. Nothing. Now think about that for a second. They described a little bit about John the Baptist, like I just told you. And I think that the author did a pretty good job of helping us to imagine what kind of a guy this was that we're thinking and looking at. Am I right? Goliath. We also get kind of a description. A little bit of description about what Goliath looked like in comparison to David. But nothing on Jesus makes me suspicious. What did the dude look like? What if Jesus didn't look like any of the paintings that have been passed down to us? At one church that I served as a country church, wonderful people, wonderful congregation, wonderful little church building, just like ours here. But right up here, instead of a stained glass window, they didn't have that there. And you wouldn't want it there because what was outside, it wasn't that great to look at, okay? So we had the picture of Jesus, one of those famous paintings, the blue-eyed, rather white-looking Jesus. And it made me a little uncomfortable at times. Well, let's just imagine Jesus in a totally different light. What if Jesus was 5'4"? Yeah, you probably wouldn't date him, but what if he was 5'4"? Maybe that's why he was 30 and never married. Skinny arms and legs. A little fragile and weak looking. Have you seen guys like this? A little fragile, a little weak looking, Already starting to lose his hair. Some men do start losing their hair by 30. I'm just saying. There was no Rogaine back then. Brown eyes, brown skin, doesn't speak English, doesn't play American football, looks more like a fan who sits in the cheap seats. That's what I'm getting. That's the kind of vibe that I'm getting from Jesus, from the scriptures, because of this silence. Could you live with that image of Jesus? A lot of you shaking heads. Yeah, I know I'm supposed to say yes. But underneath, come on. You're a little bit disappointed with this look of Jesus, are you not? I know I am. I had trouble writing it. One time, and one of the reasons maybe it's my issue and not your issue. Sorry about that. Sometimes that happens when you preach. I remember reading the words of this great contemporary theologian in seminary. He sounded so convincing, intelligent. His words were so strong, so authoritative, so, you just wanted to get behind the words of this theologian. I thought, wow, this guy is monumental. And I imagined in my head what kind of a guy this looks like, right? Speaking these strong words. I don't know why. I had this understanding he probably was over 6 foot. I thought he was probably large and muscular. I thought he probably had a booming voice. You know what I mean? A kind of booming type of voice, like maybe a Billy Graham or whoever you want to put in that place, okay? Someone who when you just heard him, you just sit up and you couldn't help but listen to the guy. And then one day, I saw him. Not in person, thankfully. It was on a lecture on YouTube. He's like 5'4". Small, actually difficult to listen to. Kind of a voice that made you want to turn the channel. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Have you ever had somebody like that and you're like, oh boy, this is going to be painful? That's what I listened to. It was painful to hear him. He wasn't what I had expected, you see, to see or to hear. He didn't match anything that I had configured in my mind for what I had read, except for the moment I said, well, now I know why he writes. It woke me up. It woke me up to how God can use anyone to fulfill God's purpose. And often, God goes in such a way that it gets your attention because it's so strange, so unusual, not what you would expect. Verse 14, John would have prevented him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and you come to me? But Jesus answered him, let it be so now, for it is proper for us in this way to fulfill all righteousness. Then John consented. In other words, when John was confronted with Jesus, Jesus didn't measure up either. Now, he doesn't tell us what he looked like, but I'm just guessing that my description is very close to what the actual person was. And then on top of everything else, Jesus comes down here to be baptized like any ordinary person. Doesn't that scare the bejeebies out of you? I thought you were like in charge. You're the Messiah. If you're going to be the Messiah, why are you getting in line? Why are you allowing others to go in front of you? I mean, I don't know about you, but if I'm rich and famous, I'm going to the front of the line. I'm sitting behind home plate. I'm blowing the horn in Minneapolis. But this is not the guy that we signed up for. He comes in the crowd. He's identifiable somehow, but he's not what we expected. He's certainly not even as powerful of a speaker or looks-wise as John the Baptist was. It's probably why a couple of the Gospels spent so long trying to tell everybody, no, he's not the one. Yeah, I know John the Baptist. He kind of looks like he's the winner, right? But no, it's more like, like Goliath looked like that, but it was David, right? And so Jesus looks a lot more like David, but he's the one we were waiting for, not John. Don't get confused, right? How many times did they have to ask John the Baptist, are you sure? Are you the one? No, I'm pointing over here. It's him. It's definitely him. Oh, he's 5'4". And why would this Messiah come to John the Baptist like everyone else? To repent of sins. Holy cow. If the Messiah has sins, we got problems, don't we? Then we had to have a lot of theologians step in at this point. In any of your study Bibles, they jump in here. There's some footnotes and stuff. Hold on a second. Jesus is not a sinner. Jesus is doing what, folks? Do you know what they tell you?
Fulfilling the prophecy.
There you go, Joe. He's just fulfilling the prophecy. Okay, that's good. What else? Anything else you read? Yeah. Something like, kind of like, how we learn. Sometimes we read books and sometimes you got to show us, right? A mentor. And do as you see me do it. I mean, wasn't that the whole point of sending Jesus anyway? We already had the 10 Commandments. We already had everything that we really needed. But God's like, man, these people are dense. I'm going to have to send somebody to physically watch over them as they fry French fries because I don't think they can handle it. I'll send Jesus. He can do the training manual. Show them exactly how it's done. So Jesus comes, as the scholars tell us, not because he had sins to John the Baptist, but as a way of saying the Messiah is not going to be Andre the Great. The Messiah is not going to be Sugar Lips. The Messiah is going to be something that you were not expecting. Someone who says, I'll just wait in line. I'm in no hurry. There are other people with needs here. Someone humble. Oh, yeah, remember? Someone that would ride on a donkey. Someone that would be born to just ordinary people living in Nazareth. A carpenter. A teenage daughter of someone? Yeah, I guess we should have expected this from what they've all told us. If he is going to take our place on the cross, then the message from Matthew seems to be, he better be willing to live in our shoes. Walk in our shoes. Know what the heck it really is like to be just an ordinary sheep. And that's how Jesus comes out there to the wilderness. Ordinary. Not a supermodel. Not a superhero. Someone very humble. Willing to stay in line. And when Jesus had been baptized, just as he came up from the water, suddenly the heavens were opened to him. Now this is also interesting. Like if I was rewriting this and it was about me, I'd get out of the water and I'd be the one saying, oh, look at me, take a picture. I got some captions you want to write underneath here. Son of God, Messiah, baptized. Put the date on there, please. I'll sign it for you. It's going to be worth millions. Jesus doesn't do anything, does he? He just gets out of the water. He's okay saying nothing. He's okay just walking to the other side of the shore and getting out. And no one needs to know about this. If it wasn't for God the Father, who was pretty proud of his boy then. Right? Suddenly the heavens were opened to him and he saw God's Spirit descending like a dove and alighting on him. Reminds me and other scholars, right, of the Old Testament. Where did the Hebrews come from? The greatest story before Jesus was what? The Exodus. The parting of the Red Sea is meant here. The Hebrews became God's people. They became the nation of Israel after they went through the waters. And here, there's also a kind of a name change, if you will, a kind of transition that's being marked in the life of Jesus. Out of the waters of baptism, now Jesus becomes God's true Messiah. In other words, it's as if Matthew was saying, this is the moment in which my son has said, I'm going to do what you asked me to do. That's a terrifying thought. Jesus could have said no. Jesus could have grown up and said, are you kidding me? I don't want to do this for these people. This is nuts. Get me out of here. No, Jesus said, I'll do it. I accept it. It's like he was given a contract that day and he signed it. Free will. I'm doing this. I'm all in. From this moment on, use me. If we can get past our unmet expectations of Jesus, we might see how this Messiah is actually the person we really need all along. Expectations. You know, the scholar that I was talking about that I had trouble with, one of the things that he said in many of his books, and still talks about it, which jarred me. He said, God's black. I said, oh, well, of course God's black. It's like that song, right? You know, God's black, yellow, white. The colors aren't precise, but you get the idea. No, he said, God is black, like really black. No, you mean how could God actually be black? And he said, well, you got to remember, he knows the experience of oppressed people. Who is oppressed? Certainly not a white guy with blue eyes. Oh, I hated that. No. God can still be white. He can still be that. Really? You really think so in the world in which you live? The shoes that you wear? No, for most of us who are black, he's black. No debate. Startling, isn't it? Do you see how sometimes our expectations aren't met? Sometimes we're confronted with realities that are hard to hear. 17, and a voice from the heaven said, this is my son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. So, folks, I think this text is all about the following. What, you're not going to take notes? This is your cue. Thank you. There's always a Timothy around. Put aside your own plans. Put aside your own agendas. We may be granted moments of vision, glimpses of this much greater reality of God. And at the center of that sudden sight, we will find our loving parent, Father, affirming us as his children, equipping us to do good. Ordinary people, just like you and me, equipped to do good with his Spirit, so that our lives may be swept clean and made ready for use. And in this way, we stop proclaiming our judgment so quickly. Maybe we hold a little bit of waiting time so that anger and responses can die down. So can we remember before we speak that don't you love the people in your neighborhood? Don't you love people even when they're different? Even when they have different opinions? Hell, some of you are married to them. And that's a very good thing. That's a very, very good thing. Amen.